SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
A warm welcome to all. Today we will be discussing the last section, that is the urban subcultures, and in this lecture we will cover the portions that are different perspectives of urban subculture theory, Fisher's proposition of subcultural theory, case of Redfern, Waterloo, Australia to understand how city and subcultures interact with each other. Then we will discuss about the case of graffiti and subculture, and we will also discuss about a case of skateboarding in Los Angeles. The subcultural theory was given by Fisher, and it contends that the city life is relatively unconventional and a term that covers a range of behavior from artistic innovation to expressions of dissenting value to serious criminality, but all deviate from the societal norms. Whereas Louis Wirth explained the connection between the cities and the subcultural theory or diversity and unconventionality as the social breakdown, where he finds that the city life makes individual alienate from others and develop the individualization, which was again criticized by Fisher. According to Fisher, in a subcultural theory, cities do stimulate unconventionality, but not by bringing in the normlessness or alienation. According to him, the population concentration generates a variety of subculture or a set of interconnected social networks and the norms and the habits common to it. It is loosely synonymous with the social world. Thus, the congregation of people to maintain the subculture is important here, where it is not possible if people alienate. According to Swindler, a subcultural is a large set of people who have a defining trait that are shared among the members and have some form of association with one another. For example, the hippies. They become the member of the institutions which are associated with their defining trait. They also share a set of cultural tools and adhere to certain distinct set of values that are common to all the members, as we discussed in case of the hippies. Scholarly work of Durkheim, Seamale and Park and Louis Wirth laid the foundation of the sociological approach to urban life and the community. Wirth was the one who took the understanding forward. According to him, with a large and heterogeneous population residing mostly in the cities can lead to the weakening of the interpersonal ties among its members. According to him, the weakening of social ties happens for two reasons. The first is the psychological impact that the urban situation has on the individuals, and the second is the complex structural differentiations that are generated by the dynamic density, which is the combination of the population density of an area and the social interaction that takes place within that population. According to him, these further lead to a deviant or the non-conformist behavior among the individuals. However, there were scholars like Gans, Lewis, Young and Wilmot and others who found that this understanding of the cities as problematic. For these scholars, who are also known as to be having a non-ecological position, claim that there are a few differences between the rural and the urban population, and The density of the city or the ecological factors do not play any important role in the individual's social life. For Fisher, the urban residents do differ significantly from the residents of the non-urban places, and they differ or to the degree insufficiently accounted for by the individual traits the group brings to its locale. They are more likely than the rural residents to behave in ways that diverge from the central and or the traditional norms of their common society. According to Fisher, the subculture is a set of model beliefs, values, norms and customs associated with a relatively distinct social subsystem, that is, a set of interpersonal networks and institutions existing within the larger social system and culture. Thus, to him, urbanization is correlated with unconventionality and it stimulates the development of the subcultures. He also gave certain propositions for the same, like number 1, the larger places develop more and more specialized subcultures than do the less populous ones and are therefore more culturally heterogeneous. According to him, because of migration, people come from various parts of the city, and when they reside in the city, they also practice their culture, which is again very diverse in nature. Thus, the subculture then organized around ethnicity, population and others. The proposition 2 is that the more populous places develop not only more distinct subcultures, but also more intense subcultures than the less populous places do. According to him, as the population is more in the cities, they have large subcultures which helps in developing the specialized social networks, and people then are very well knitted in a group to resist the outside forces and reinforce their group boundaries, making their subculture more intense. The proposition 3 states that at the same time between different group contacts leads to mutual influence. According to him, the larger group influence the smaller ones and the smaller ones also influence the larger ones. For example, when a hippie culture spreads to the middle class, then the smaller group affects the larger group. He also proposes that sometimes the subcultural fusion also takes place within the cities. The proposition 4 states that the more the urban the place, the higher the rate of unconventionality relative to the wider society. According to him, the larger the place, the intense the subculture, and this leads to a greater intergroup contact and diffusion of cultural elements of the subculture to other areas. Thus, he finds that large city is integrated neither by the virtue of its citizens sharing a common shared social world, nor by the formal instruments of an anomic mass society. And the city is then integrated by exchange, negotiation and conflict among various subcultures. Let us analyze certain cases to understand how city and subcultures interact with each other. George Morgan, in his article The Urban Renewal and the Creative Underclasses, Aboriginal Youth Subculture in Sydney, Redfern, Waterloo, explains how the civic booster strategies fail to recognize the complex and the ambiguous character of the public spaces and their importance as sites of resistance, underground, avant-garde youth subculture. He takes the case of Redfern, Waterloo, and in particular the Aboriginal youth of that area. Redfern Waterloo Authority, an Australian government of New South Wales authority, was established in 2004 with the responsibility for the urban renewal of the built environment along with human services, employment and enterprise in the Redfern Waterloo area. It is planned to renew the Redfern-Waterloo area, which was inhabited by the Aboriginals. The objective of the Act states are to encourage the development of the Redfern-Waterloo into an active, vibrant and sustainable community. The second is to promote, support and respect the Aboriginal community in the Redfern-Waterloo, having regard to the most importance of the area to the Aboriginal people. The third is to promote the orderly development of the Redfern-Waterloo, taking into consideration the principles of social, economic, ecological and other substantial or sustainable development. Then the fourth one is to enable the establishment of the public areas in the Redfern-Waterloo, and the last one is to promote greater social cohesion and community safety in the Redfern-Waterloo. Thus, the Redfern-Waterloo planners were compelled to acknowledge the significance of the Aboriginal people residing in that area. Morgan argues that the Aboriginal presence, particularly of the youth, was subcultural. Redfern-Waterloo that Morgan studied was an area of poor housing, accommodating largely the Irish Catholic working class and at various times the ethnic minority groups like the Lebanese. In the post-World War II period, the area was the hub and the center of the New South Wales urban Aboriginal community. It served as a place where stories were exchanged of common experiences of racism at the hands of the authority. Such exchanges became the foundation of the emergence of a pan-Aboriginal politics and culture. Important community and cultural organizations like the Aboriginal Legal Service, Aboriginal Medical Service and the defunct Black Theatre all originated in the Redfern-Waterloo. Redfern-Waterloo also became the space in the late 60s where the Black Power movement emerged in Australia. Since the Aboriginals has problems of accessing the affordable and adequate housing in the Redfern-Waterloo, thus migration to the city made it overcrowded and slowly the area gained the reputation of being a rough area. According to Morgan, public drunkenness, violence and prostitution provoked considerable moral alarm and contributed to the public perception of the Aboriginal residents as the fringe dwellers, corrupted by the modern society. In 1974, there were plans to redevelop the area around the 11th Street Redfern for the private housing dedicated to the Aboriginals. But the plan was not fulfilled and led to the rise of the crime levels and heightened the tension between the locals and the authorities. According to Morgan, the area came to be known as the center of the drug dealing with high levels of addiction among the youth people. This was graphically and sensationally documented in the media reports during the late 20th century, which revived the popular fears about the about the black ghetto and the social decay and disorder. Here we find how unconventionality was seen as a social breakdown. However, according to Morgan, the Sydney 2030 plan, the City of Sydney Council's vision for the next 20 years acknowledges that the danger of clumsy development, recognizing that what is attractive about the localities is their organic and the multi-layer nature. Some scholars like Davis, Sennett, Gleason have spoken about the shrinking of the possibilities of the social mixing in the modernist city. For example, Davis in the 1990s described how in Los Angeles the fortification of the spaces of consumption, work, culture and family took place, excluding the underclasses and evacuating them from the public spaces. However, Morgan proposes that the creative city vision provides the possibilities for the social mixing. According to him, the young Aboriginal men in the Redwood form a key part of the area's creative underclass. They engage in the subcultural activities influenced more by the global youth culture than the aboriginal tradition, and thus they bear very little resemblance to the idealized aboriginality that is marked to the tourist or other outsiders. The city in this case provided a place not only where they could feel better or they could find better paid jobs, but also where they could enjoy themselves. According to Morgan, these men were free from the constraints which were imposed to them by the authorities and indeed their own elders back in their homelands. He found that these men took their lead from the Black Power movement in the United States and adopted the dress, the appearance and the forms of speech of the Afro-American who led the civil rights movement. They claimed that they learned about their culture in the streets of the Red Fern and the streets provided them with alternative education. Aboriginal youthful solidarities in the Red, according to Morgan, was highly localized. As many children grew up in the household without the fathers and with single mothers who found it very difficult to monitor the activities of their children at all the time. Majority of them also did not complete the high school and were skipping school from an early age. After they left the school, there were also few job opportunities for those without credentials, and these circumstances, according to Morgan, led the Aboriginal youth open to the subcultural influences from the street. According to Morgan, the enthusiasm of the Aboriginal youth for the hip hop has extended beyond listening to the music of others. Red Fern has become a place where the community access recording studio in the Red Fern Community Center is used and for outdoor performances. Aboriginal rappers like the MC Ware, Brotha Black, Street Warriors and the Southwest Syndicate have developed the fan bases from here. Red Fern is the base for Gadigal Radio, an Aboriginal radio station, and the Red Fern Records, both of which support this indigenous subculture or music scene. Thus, we can see how these spaces have become sites of sorts of identification, creative inspiration and subcultural pedagogies. Now let us discuss another case of the urban subculture, that is graffiti. The presence of graffiti has increased over the years in different cities and across the world. According to many scholars, contemporary graffiti originated in a phenomenon that took place in the United States towards the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s of the 20th century in the cities like the Philadelphia and the New York. Prior to the 1990s, graffiti was in New York City considered as an expression of rebellion and to be practiced only by violating the law, like by stealing the spray paint or by trespassing the train yards to paint, and the commercial and the legal graffiti in that case did not exist prior to the 1990s. Jeff Farrell in his study finds that the politics of graffiti writing are those of anarchism. Similarly, according to Nancy MacDonald, the illegality of the graffiti constitutes the subcultural or subculture's backbone. Graffiti has been associated with masculinity. As stated MacDonald, this subculture must be acknowledged for what it is, a site of or a site for male youth, an illegal confine where danger, opposition and the exclusion of women is used to nourish, amplify and salvage the notion of masculinity. According to MacDonald's, graffiti writers derive pleasure from it or for breaking the boundaries set by the institutes, and any attempts to move away from this tradition of illegality will be similar to the tanning of the subculture. Ronald Kammer studied graffiti writers to understand the culture in a better way. His interviews with the graffiti writers from the 5 points which was a warehouse building that was located in the Queens, where people were given the permission to paint graffiti on the exterior surfaces of the building. However, now this has stopped since the 2013. The vast majority of the legal graffiti in the New York City is found on the exterior sidewall of the small businesses, large factory walls, in the outer boroughs and schoolyard walls, and sometimes on vans and trucks. The graffiti writers in this case seek permission from the property owners who produce legal graffiti murals in form of a written consent. The graffiti writer also paints for free. In contrast to stealing the aerosol cans, now the legal graffiti painters buy them or buy their specially produced can from different companies like the Spanish Montana, the German Montana, Belton, Monster, Sabotage, and a handful of others. Kammer found that the writers see themselves and their art as contributing to the communities in the ways that are beneficial, and it would appear that portions of the general public are appreciative of the work that they do. Here we find that the kind of interaction that takes place between the subculture and the city. So let us examine another case of skateboarding where Georgie J. Snyder establishes how these subculture carriers have a positive impact on the individual skaters, and to understand some of the effects that the subcultures have on the cities in which they are most prominent. As Fisher claims, the modern complex society exhibit a wide range of subcultural diversity. According to Snyder, the skateboarding is a subculture with its own distinct language, skill set, worldview, and a set of values in which the skaters self-identify themselves as members of an alternative subculture. According to him, the skateboarders are united by the process and the practice of skating, and from their identities as skaters first and their ethnic or racial identities come later. Skateboarding needs skaters to be physically active, and since it is dominated mostly by men, it has less or very few female takers. However, there are some women skaters as Elisa Stimmer and Marisa del Santos who are considered to be good at or good in this area. Skaters come generally from a wide range of class, like the suburban upper middle class to the working class and to the urban poor areas. According to Snyder, skateboarding attracts skaters to certain cities, especially like the Los Angeles, San Diego and San Francisco, to participate in the skateboarding industry and to skate the most famous spot. According to Snyder, subcultures that exist in particular city matter, as young people who think of moving to a city generally choose the one that has the subculture that they can identify themselves with. Thus, the immigrants migrate to Los Angeles or San Diego with their skateboards and all the requisite knowledge the subculture requires. Additionally, Snyder finds that the subculture like the skateboarding creates the self-sustaining enclaves that attract more and more people to a city to capitalize on the opportunities that the subculture creates. For example, the subculture nurtures the career opportunities and helps some individual to achieve economic self-sufficiency, like engaging in professional skateboarding, becoming filmers of the skateboarding, photographers, video editors, writers, journalists, shoe designers, clothing designer, graphic artist, team manager and company owners, among others. According to Snyder, the creative use of the space by the skaters for their own purposes is not purely a critique of urban space. Professional street skateboarders perform the original tricks on the subcultural landmarks for the purposes of progressing the discipline of skateboarding and getting paid. His study has shown that the skateboarders participate in the subculture for fun, but many also hope that they may make a living out of what they are doing for or what they love to do. According to him, taking the skateboarding as a profession or associating market to it was seen by some scholars as not abiding by the rules of the subculture. However, Snyder believes that if the skateboarders practices skateboarding, keeping intact his or her creativity, then this dictates the skateboarding subculture. According to him, the existence of skateboarding subculture career is itself a reflection of the do-it-yourself or DIY ethos that came into or came out of the punk culture or the punk movement. Skaters find places to skate, document it and put the edited content on the magazines or DVDs and on the web, which they sell to the other skateboarders. Thus, according to him, this subcultural activity constitutes so much more than simply riding a skateboard illegally on a city street. According to him, the skateboarding subculture sustains itself and progresses through the documentation of skateboard tricks disseminated through the subculture media like the magazine and the videos. And through this, the use of the space the skateboarders lead to the creation of opportunities for the young people, giving a new meaning and use to the urban space. Thus today we have discussed how subcultures interact with the city. I hope you have gained new perspectives from enrolling on this course, that is urban sociology, and enjoyed every bit of learning with us. I wish you have a great career ahead and thank you for listening.